Hey guys, Zach here. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. I really do appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind taking just 2 seconds to make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what your favorite thing about vanilla Warcraft is, or what you're looking forward to most about Classic. Let me know in the comments down below. We're almost at 100 subscribers. Once we hit that point, we're doing a 20 game giveaway. I might add more, who knows? The odds are in your favor to walk away with a free game. So make sure to hit that subscribe button so we can hit that milestone, get our custom URL, and then celebrate with a giveaway. Thanks guys, let's jump right into the video. What's going on, Templars? Zach here with 3 very special guests who need no introduction, but I'm gonna make them do their own anyway. First up, we got MrGM. Tell us a bit about yourself.
My name's MrGM.
Great introduction. Orcbit, the one, the only. And then we have Mr. Mobile himself. TipsOut.
My name's TipsOut. I make YouTube videos, and right now I'm on a cell phone.
That's very accurate, actually. I like it. So how's everyone doing today? Everyone having a good day? Everyone ready to talk some Classic?
Fucking A, man.
I'd prefer Battle for Azeroth beta. You know, it's a little bit more relevant to the conversation.
Sounds fun.
I mean, might as well just talk about Diablo 4 at that point. So, you guys are pretty big Classic advocates. I never played vanilla. I have very minimal experience with the old world because I started up in Wrath. So, you guys are going to do some educating for the public for when Classic goes live on the biggest shocks and changes of pretty big topics. So are you guys ready to get this turkey in the oven?
Damn you.
Alright, so first thing we're all going to be doing in WoW Classic, obviously leveling up, which involves questing. So, you know, orderly fashion, what do you guys think is the biggest difference between questing in vanilla versus questing now in retail?
I mean, it's such a loaded question, but basically the biggest difference I would say is the pacing. I think questing now is just so linear and so fast-paced, going from one hub to the next. It's literally, it feels like a rapid-fire like action game, whereas questing in vanilla is much more methodical, slow-paced. You're not necessarily bouncing between quest hubs as much as you are trying to seek out experience wherever you can, whether it be grinding, quests, whatever. I definitely think the biggest shocker for new players is going to be the pacing and just how long it takes to reach level cap.
Solid answer. The thing with like comparison to regular games, regular WoW and Classic. Like with obviously Classic with the questing, you obviously don't have the helper or anything like that. You can get questy, but you know, but built in, you know, you got to find your way. You got to read the quest text. You got to be a bit more immersed in the world. Whereas with like Battle for Azeroth, for example, I was streaming and there was a quest to like find these clues, and I thought, oh, what a cool quest! But it wasn't so freaking cool because it just showed you on the map exactly where these clues were. So it wasn't really so much a, you know, try to find the clues. It was more go to this point and click the button sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you can definitely see a difference in the like quest design, how it's made to entertain you in like a short period of time, whereas the old questing was more you're out in this world experiencing this adventure and everything. Now you have all these kind of like mini games, and just like you said, Dan, you go to a place and you click on it. You don't really think about the story or the impact or whatever.
Exactly. And like the craziest part about it, like the thing that trips me out so much is like 10-15 years ago, if you designed a game that told you exactly where to go for its objectives, like that would have been considered a cheat code or a game shark or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like it's so unfathomable to me that a game whose you know, entire objective is to be a source of entertainment by allowing you to solve puzzles and just figure it out, it's literally giving you the answer. It's so counterintuitive. And like, again, like I just think, you know, if back in the day, an Ocarina of Time, if the water temple told you exactly where to go and which chest to open, it would just have been considered a joke, and it's insane. But in vanilla, like MrGM said, like Orcbit said, it's very adventurous. You kind of have to figure things out on your own, and you become a lot more invested in the game as a result.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I watched a video last week by Mad Season, who makes some fantastic videos, and he was going over the Shifting Sands, the Scepter of the Shifting Sands quest.
Yeah, for
the Anchorage. Yeah, it was so epic. Like the quest was just so crazy. It just took you to everywhere, and it was just so much going on with it. And you just don't get anything like that anymore, unfortunately.
It's insane. We recently did it on Light's Hope, actually, for our guild master, for him to get the mount. And it's like a whole guild working together, as you say, going from fucking one point of the world to the opposite side. And like you have to kill these raid bosses and group up with other guilds and shit. It's amazing.
Because that's the thing they don't do so much now, is where if it's a raid quest, it'll be only a raid, and that's it. With like something like that, you have like a part which is in a raid, you have a part which is in the outside world or doing something else by yourself potentially or whatever. But nowadays it's like, if it's a dungeon quest, you only ever go to the dungeon. There's no like do a bit in a dungeon then do a bit in Ashen Vale or something.
Exactly.
And you don't really have a like attachment to the dungeons either, because you get ported there, right? You don't know where they are in the world.
I would love to quiz like a player, like a newer player who's only ever been in it since the dungeon journal, to tell me where each dungeon is. I would love to see if they could come up with it.
It's funny, yesterday I was doing some BRF runs on stream, just like for transmog. I had no idea like there was a dungeon in the BRF like instance, the Grimrail Depot, and I have no idea where any of like the Mists of Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, or even the Legion dungeons like actually spawn. It's crazy.
Yeah, when I was doing Mythic Plus, they were like, yeah, come to More of Souls. I was like, where the fuck is that? Like, I've been there 300 times and I have no idea where it is. They're like, oh, it's in Stormheim. I'm like, okay, so luckily it was on the map. They actually put a pointer on it. But if they didn't, I'll be up Ship Creek, I think.
I think one thing we all can agree on is that like the biggest difference between questing now and questing then is probably that, well, I don't know with the revamp, but people don't do it anymore, do they? I mean, don't people just spam dungeons?
Well, they kind of changed it with the level scaling, so it did make the world a lot better. But I mean, the questing. The thing is, you can't say all the Cataclysm questing is bad, because it isn't. Because some of it, you know, especially in the more recent stuff, it's got a lot of cutscenes, it's got a lot of kind of voice acting, and a bit more immersive. But the questing itself is, yeah, it's a a bit of a handhold experience. But the actual immersiveness and the storytelling has actually gotten a lot better since, let's say Wrath, for example.
And Wrath was where we started to see a lot of the questing innovations in regards to like cutscenes and stuff too. I think we all remember the Wrathgate cinematic still in our hearts. So do you think, and this is like a speculation, we're gonna have a small speculation segment for each topic, do you think Blizzard was trying to appeal to a different kind of player when they added like the quest helping in game, making quests more rapid fire? Why do you think they kind of took that direction?
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, like, if I had to take a gander, if you go back to Wrath of the Lich King, beyond the cinematics, I would say like one of the biggest game changers for questing in all of World of Warcraft was the introduction of phasing. And I think what Blizzard was trying to do with phasing was there was obviously a lot of problems with some quests being unphased in vanilla and TBC, things like escort quests and a lot of the large scale quests. Because they were unphased, a lot of people would never do those quests because somebody else was doing them and using the NPC in the meantime. So I think Blizzard tried to solve that problem by allowing everybody to do every quest with this new phasing technology. But in the process, they didn't realize that they were actually turning the game into a single-player game instead of an immersive multiplayer RPG. And, phasing is what really transformed not only questing, but it's kind of transformed the entire philosophy of the outdoor world in World of Warcraft. And it just, you know, I think that's where things really changed, honestly. But I'm sorry, I forgot the question. What was the question?
No, it's fine. Sorry, my microphone was muted for some reason. The question was, why do you think Blizzard kind of shifted from vanilla-style leveling, questing, to the way we have it now, with the quest helper and stuff like that?
I think it's just because they got the new phasing tech and they kind of wanted to play around with it. I think the best examples of that actual technology where I kind of thought, yeah, this is kind of cool, for example, in like Ice Crown, where you have a quest that takes you to the zone that's completely riddled by Scourge and stuff like that, and you go in there and you kill a load of like the main dudes in there and you kind of wipe the place clean. You go hand in your quest, and by the time you come back to that point, the Knights of the Ebon Blade have actually taken over it, and it's now a quest hub. I think stuff like that is cool, but as Tips was saying with like escort quests and stuff, it's awkward because in a real world scenario you wouldn't have like 3 of the same guy running around. Like, it's just, you know, the person's busy. You come back to it.
I also think that Blizzard, when they did this, because they all of a sudden had huge success with their game. And I don't know if there are any actual statistics about this, but I do remember hearing something about a lot of players or potential players, they played the game once and they lost them in the starting zone because people didn't really know what to do. And I think Blizzard as a company was looking at this and they saw maybe, I don't know how many accounts just being wasted, like they only log in and they never get out of the starting zone, being like, okay, these are potential customers. The customers we have already, they know how to play, but how can we design the game so new people stick around way longer so we earn more money, right? And they probably just wanted to ensure that people had a proper experience, quote unquote, so they would stick around. But yeah, in my opinion, it kind of backfired.
I agree. They were trying to chase this mass appeal. I guess like Blizzard at some point in like 2005, 2006, especially after the South Park episode, they probably realized how culturally significant World of Warcraft was becoming. And it reached so many non-endemic, non-MMO audiences that they were like, okay, we like, you know, we like the MMO money, we like the hardcore gamer money, but we also like money in general. Exactly. And, you know, no fault to them. They're a corporation. They've got to do what they got to do. But I think they realize they can cast a much larger shadow and reap a lot more by kind of dumbing down the game, simplifying the game a little bit so they can appeal to the mass market. And that's probably why things have gotten so simple over the years.
Any last speculation? Oh, go ahead, Mr. G.
I mean, with the again with the phasing, I was just thinking of another example where it's actually a good thing is the Death Knight starting zone. You think about that one, so like that whole story is just like pretty damn good because it is just like telling the story of you becoming, you know, as a servant of the Lich King to, you know, becoming a member of the Horde or Alliance. I think they just overdid it. I think that's the issue. I think with that one.
Exactly. Phasing became like almost a mandatory tool instead of like a supplemental tool. It could have like there are some scenarios when phasing really amplifies the experience, but it's like, you know, too much sugar in your ice cream or whatever. Like at the end of the day, you got to have a balance. And when it comes to an RPG, especially an MMO RPG, you have to give players kind of some agency to create their own stories. With all quests having phasing and all quests kind of centering around you, your personal character, and like your influence on the world, it kind of makes it feel like, again, you're this hero, you're this, you know, you're the center of the story, whereas the world itself should be the center of the story, and you should just be participating in it. And again, I just think that breaks a lot of the immersion.
No, for sure, for sure. So, moving on from questing, now the biggest thing that you experience while questing is the environment. Causes a lot of immersion. I kind of switched up the order of our list a little bit, so I apologize. So let's talk about Old World versus the new revamps. What changes do you guys like? What don't you like? How has it affected the player experience? I'm sure we'll be talking loads about flying in Azeroth. We'll get to that. So what do you guys think? Favorite changes, least favorite changes, overall thoughts?
Personally, when Cataclysm came out, I still remember I was at the midnight release. I was really like looking forward to it, like the new expansion hype. But I popped it in, and I got to play maybe 2 hours after the release because yeah, servers and shit. I had played it for maybe 1.5 hours, and I mean, it didn't really resonate with me at all. I mean, breaking the whole world. In the beginning, I thought, okay, something new, but I quickly realized that I was actually really attached to the old world. And now that it's not a choice, it's just gone. Like you're forced to play this new world now. Kind of felt meh, in my opinion.
When here's a story for you. So when there's pretty much every expansion of WoW, for some reason, because my brother played it, he used to always play like super late and just stayed up all night playing it, and I was kind of obviously playing it as well, but it would always be on like a weekend or when BlizzCon was, and especially the Cataclysm. I come back, it was like 3 in the morning. I just come back from a night out, and I was absolutely tired. And and my brother told me about the Cataclysm. I was like, nah, that's not real. That's not real. And then he showed me the trailer. I'm like, why would they do that? They're not going to do that. And then they did it. And yeah, it's the thing is like with the new scaling, the questing, you actually get to experience those zones. The thing is, when the Cataclysm came in, everyone, or most people, were high level, and you had no real ambition to level a new character. So like 95% of those zones were never used. And there's still like, I've never been to post Cataclysm like burning steps. Like I don't know what goes on there. There could be like the most incredible story in the world, but I've never seen it.
I remember WoW Krendor, he does his leveling series. And just watching him quest, I'm like, dude, I haven't done any of these quests before. Like, there's like Rambo quests in Red Ridge, and like some random like gun shooting quests in like the Badlands and stuff. And again, I haven't done any of those. Since Cataclysm, I primarily leveled through dungeons. But I think the biggest thing about the change of the world, for me, it wasn't so much the environment and the upgraded textures. The big thing that I noticed when it came to questing is you were no longer leveling in the world, you were leveling in a hub. And what I mean by that is, like, no matter what zone you play in vanilla, you're going to have breadcrumb quests that take you to other zones, like just by default. And in some zones in particular, like some quests will literally take you to like 10 different like zones and all over the place. And you never feel like you're confined to a specific track of quests in a specific zone. It feels like you're leveling in the world. Whereas in Cataclysm, everything became this kind of generic, streamlined quest hub to quest hub, orientation. It felt like wherever you were, not only were you not able to even focus on the zone, you could only focus on that particular quest hub, because you go to the quest giver, you get 3 to 4 quests. They're all within like 50 yards of the quest giver. You do them, you turn them back in. Then he takes you to the next quest hub. You're not paying attention during the travel time. You don't look at the world around you. You're just worried about going from point A to point B to point C. And it makes you, it kind of takes away the content of the world itself. Whereas again, in vanilla, I mean, even finding quests was a mission in and of itself. But when you did find them, you had no idea where they could take you. There was this sense of unpredictability. Whereas now, again, you're going to this next point, this next point, this next point. It's kind of that gamification of questing. It turned to more of like a game rather than like an open adventure and stuff like that. For me, that's what really killed the new world post-Cata.
Yeah, I mean, there was... I think you actually did a video recently on some quest chain that was like ridiculously crazy that took you everywhere. And was it like Mantric's wife or something? Was it that one? There was some sort of quest that was kind of took you everywhere, and it was kind of cool.
The one that I really like is the Missing Diplomat. Like, I think that's like a level 30 quest. Like level 30, like that's like your first, 25 to 35 hours of gameplay. It takes you to over 4 different continents. You have 2 events in that quest. You have 4 different bosses, including elite bosses. You get introduced to Jaina Proudmoore, which is like this huge lore character, and you take your first trip from the Eastern Kingdoms to Kalimdor as an Alliance member. Like, it's a huge quest, and it takes a long time to do. And again, it's just something you wouldn't see in the game today. You know, a quest, you know, a frickin' wetlands quest, or wherever you pick it up. I think in Stormwind, actually, you pick it up. It takes you like all across the world, and it takes hours and hours to do. But again, that's what an adventure is. I mean, when Bilbo Baggins left Hobbiton, I don't think he knew that he was going to go to this specific quest hub, you know, get a new task, and then go to the next you know, city, and then get a new task. It's just unpredictable. You have no idea where the journey is going to take you, and I think that's what made vanilla questing so freaking beautiful.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between when you accept a quest and you don't know where you're going to end up, and then having like the newer quest hub design, and you know, okay, I'm not going to go very far. I totally agree.
So while you're questing and going through all these zones, eventually you're going to hit a dungeon quest, or have to do a dungeon. So main differences. Tips, I believe you just made a video about vanilla dungeons. So what do you guys think? How do dungeons stack up now compared to how they were back then?
I mean, it's funny, now that we just preluded that with the questing, it all kind of is starting to connect in my mind. It's almost like the same philosophy that was used in the new quests was also used in the new dungeons. And it's just a philosophy that I think just Blizzard adopted somewhere in Wrath of the Lich King, just to streamline everything. And in the same way that, you know, questing used to be adventurous and used to be unpredictable, so were dungeons for a large portion of the game. When you did a BRD run back in vanilla, actual vanilla, you had no idea, you know, how many bosses you were going to clear. You had no idea. I mean, hopefully you try to get a rogue to lockpick some of the doors, or hopefully someone has keys and whatnot. But again, it's like you don't really know how far you're going to get in a dungeon. Maybe your group wipes and you disband. Whereas now, every time you enter a dungeon, not only do you know you're going to complete it, you know you're going to complete it in about, you know, 8 to 15 minutes, depending on the dungeon. You know all of the bosses. You know exactly what they're going to drop, yada, yada, yada. It's just become so streamlined and so linear. There's no, like, left or right. There's no mazes. There's no wailing caverns as it was. It all kind of suffered the same fate as the questing. And again, I think it's the adoption of that streamlined philosophy that really took over all of the game systems, but dungeons as well.
Definitely. You can see that, because in vanilla you had these dungeons while leveling up, and you could have a group of level 30 or 20 something ish doing their little dungeon and feeling like incredible heroes, just as the people who did the 40-man raids, right? They were just enjoying themselves in their little party, even though it's just a very, very little stepping stone towards level 60. But nowadays it kind of feels like you just, you know, leveling is just a rush, basically. Like, you don't really go through the dungeon as an adventure. Like Tip says, it can take like 4 hours or even more. You would never have that nowadays. People wouldn't stick around for that long.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up the 4-hour thing. This is hilarious. Okay, when I was doing, I did like a Razorfen crawl video a while back, but when I do it, I just make sure I do all the quests and stuff, and I do a little bit of research before my video too, just in case I can find something like interesting about the dungeons. When I was doing some research for Razorfen crawl, I found a guide online, and this guy was bragging in his guide about how this guide is going to get you to do Razorfen crawl in under 2 hours. You know, like that's he's bragging, oh, it's going to take only 2 hours to do this dungeon. It's like, oh my god, like I was cracking up when I read it.
Holy shit.
Yeah, but yeah, compare that again to today, you know, depending on the dungeon, 8 to 15 minutes, and that's a 15 minutes if somebody's going to AFK to open up the door for the pizza guy, some guy's got to go to the bathroom, etc.
Yeah. And also like the social aspect. I mean, I love like even leveling and doing dungeons, even though if you're a hardcore leveler, most people would probably say you shouldn't waste your time with dungeons, but I like doing them anyway. Like you can maybe lose a tank to a disconnect or whatever, and then you're like, oh, we have a Fury Warrior. Do you have a shield? Oh yeah, I got a shield, and you know, now he's the tank, and it sort of works, and you kind of struggle through it, and then you finally complete the dungeon, like even with the tank disconnected. Like it feels like an accomplishment, even though it's just some shitty Wailing Caverns or Racerfin or whatever.
Yeah.
What about you, Mr. GM? You've been quiet.
I was just thinking, on like normal undocumented servers these days, how long would it take to do like a Wailing Caverns? Is it just like pretty quick now and efficient because everyone knows it?
Well, even like, because I just did one, right? I literally just did one like yesterday. So even Wailing Caverns, a very efficient run with experienced players, will still take you like 45 minutes to an hour. And you'll still wipe on the frickin' Murloc at the end. Okay, like, because we wipe. Like, it's just, it's, you know, it's incredible. And it's still, a lot of people say that the game has changed, or at least the gaming culture and kind of, you know, the modern information age has changed gaming. And as a result, we'll experience vanilla very differently come classic, which I agree with. But it's funny, some of the principles are just so timeless that no matter how advanced players become, how great gamers become, no matter how much knowledge is available, you still have to respect the game. You still have to respect, you know, the threat meter, or you're going to die. You still have to be careful of pulling an extra pack, because if you do, you're going to die. You still have to abide by all of the original rules of vanilla, or you're going to die. And it's just, it's incredible to see that even, you know, 15 years later, we're not able to evolve beyond the game because the game itself is so timeless.
So it's funny that you guys brought up, you know, people talking, communicating, you know, the whole, oh, we lost our tank. Hey, warrior, do you have a tank or a shield? Because next up we're going to be talking about the community. Oh yeah. So this is something I know a little bit about, mostly because I like to watch a lot of classic content. So why don't you guys go ahead and, you know, regale us with stories of your favorite bits of the community, and basically the big differences between before the server merge, whatever you want to call it, cross servers, and after. So I'll let Mr. GM go first because he was pretty quiet last question.
There's probably a rogue on Vashj EU somewhere that I still owe 400 gold for my mount.
What's the story there?
That is it. He was actually a night elf rogue, and you know, you don't remember shit like that now. Yeah, I don't remember what I was doing that long ago, but apparently I remember that. I can even tell you what hair he had. He he was just a random guy, and he was on my friends list, and we like leveled up. I think we did a group quest in like somewhere weird, because I think for some reason it was like an alt that I had, and I was like, I've done the Eastern Kingdoms quest, I'm going to run over to Kalimdor and do Darkshore. And obviously when you're in Darkshore, you're going to run into some night elves. So yeah, that's how I met him. I added him on my friends list, and he actually ended up getting to max level, and we both did, and we actually did some ZG because we ended up in the same guild. But yeah, he just, in the end I was just like, dude, I'm trying to get this mount. I really need some gold. Do you have any? He was like, yeah, I got some. He goes, can you pay me back? I was like, oh yeah, totally. And yeah, I moved server. Not intentionally.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I just hearing him say, you know, somebody helped him with 400 gold. I mean, I can't speak on, you know, MrGM or Orcbit's behalf, but you know, when's the last time you've traded somebody in game? Like, I can't remember speaking to, like, I can't remember the last time I spoke to anybody on my server or in World of Warcraft in like years. It's been so long. Back in vanilla, because you only had, you know, the people on your server, those were the people that you interacted with, and that was it. That was your community. You know, you saw people multiple times. You kind of had this reputation that you wanted to maintain and you know, let people know who you are, because that was what was going to get you into groups and stuff like that. You know, you basically had an island of 2,000 to 3,000 people, and those were your people. And whenever you're in a situation like in high school or any kind of community that's like a small community, you just naturally get closer to the people around you, and you grow closer to them. And when you have, you know, all of these people, you know, sharing a hobby and just, you know, becoming so close together, you're going to get a lot of really genuine, authentic, personal experiences. That's why so many people back in the day, you'd hear stories of people getting married to the people they met on a specific server or something like that. You know, obviously there was also a lot of tragedies that happened on servers, like the Serenity Now funeral that got ganked. I mean, you had all of these people that were so tightly knit because they saw each other every day, whether it be in questing zones, in dungeons, or in raids. It just fostered this very close community. And honestly, I haven't seen a community quite like that, I think, ever in any MMO, period.
Definitely. On that note, like, what I love about vanilla is you can't really do much when you're on your own. Well, you can go out and farm or whatever, but if you want to do something, if you want to accomplish something, you have to work with other people. That's the gist of the game, at least it used to be. And when you have to work with people, and when you have common goals, as Tip said, you know, you kind of forge these bonds. And something that only happened to me in vanilla was real life guild meetings. I mean, we had a guild meeting in the town I live in, and I realized that 5 people from my guild live in the same town, and we had like a guild master from Sweden coming in, people from Germany, all over, and we went out, got beers, and had a blast. And I passed out in our main tank's bathtub.
Awesome.
And so yeah, like, I mean, I've met people online before in other games and stuff, but just the way you forge your friendships with people you played with in vanilla, it's just something different, because you spend so much time together that in the end you know these people.
Exactly. And like something you just said, Orcbit, like that's, I feel, is so important. It's the game that encouraged you to become, you know, to foster the social dependency.
Yeah.
Like you had to, I mean, if you want to do anything in vanilla, aside from like some basic questing and grinding, you've got to talk to people. You've got to meet people. The game pushes you into that direction.
And it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I just think it's kind of funny, like, you have a video game which mostly, at least way back in the day, appealed to people who maybe weren't that social, and then you put these guys, like all these people who maybe just want to sit at home at a computer because they don't want to be that social, and you put them in a setting where all of a sudden they have to be social. So I'm pretty sure that, speaking for myself as well, like, you would get something out of the game that you didn't get in real life, right? You would meet all these people, you would socialize. Maybe you weren't like the most social person in real life, but online you were.
Exactly. Like, it allowed people that, you know, might not necessarily have, you know, again, that social prowess in real life. It gave them kind of a veil to not necessarily hide themselves, but kind of expose themselves, and without judgment or anything along those lines. And it's crazy. Like, I hear a lot of people today, especially people that didn't experience vanilla, they claim that, oh, you know, it's not that vanilla had this great community, it's that gamers have changed and people have become antisocial and blah blah blah. I completely disagree. I don't think it has anything to do with gamer habits. I think it's very simple. There was a structure, there was a system, a philosophy in place that encouraged social dependency and that fostered it. And that philosophy was, we're going to make most of our content challenging unless you're in a group, or we're going to restrict most of our content unless you're in a group. You know, no phasing, no solo player mode. For most of the content in vanilla World of Warcraft, you need to be in a group. And again, when you have that kind of social dependency push, and at the same time you only have a limited amount of players on a specific server, all of a sudden you get people talking to each other, you get people meeting each other, And when you have, you know, just 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people talking and interacting with each other, eventually you create a community. And again, I don't think it has anything to do with gamer habits. I think it's entirely due to the actual game's structure at the time.
Indeed. I mean, that's why you can, like, 15 years later, you can still be entertained by one of the most basic-ass boss fights in a video game ever. I mean, let's be real, not all the bosses in vanilla have, like, crazy mechanics or like, strats or whatever you need to do. But you being there with 40 or 39 people that you see at least 3 times a week, and you accomplish these goals together, is what makes it fun. I mean, it's not pressing 2 and then moving and then pressing 2 again. It's the experience, the whole experience doing it with the guild. Like, I mean, if you did it with 39 bots, then I'm pretty sure you'd be bored out of your mind.
Exactly.
I did see one argument for communities and stuff like that, and it was, do you think, so let's say your high-end raider, your mythic raider now, say it's the same person who was raiding back in vanilla. They're basically, their day consists of, obviously, well, their World of Warcraft experience consists of getting up to level, doing the hardest raids in the game, you know, logging, like, wiping 300 times on each boss and everything like that. Like, compared to what they were doing in vanilla to what they were doing exactly, like, now, doing mythic raiding, do you think there's any difference to their way of World of Warcraft, even if, say, they're in the same guild? The only thing that would have changed for them would be the way that their classes worked.
I mean, you have way more preparation in vanilla. It's like 80% preparation and 20% execution, whereas nowadays, as you said, people just wipe 300 times and then they kill it. And I think it's you definitely have to be that sort of person who can do that, who can like do that many preparations in order to get the goal, and not just like go in face first and see what happens.
Yeah.
When did they get rid of world buffs?
TBC, right?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe not all at once, but they definitely, because they revamped the whole buff system and elixirs and shit in TBC.
Yeah.
So if you never played vanilla, like me, and have no idea what a world buff is, like me, what's a world buff?
So in vanilla, there are different events and like quests or even loot that you can somehow turn in or interact with some other object in the world that will give you and or your group a buff. And because it's out in the world, it's known as a world buff. These world buffs are some are easier to get than others. They do require some effort, like Dragon Slayer buffs, of course, requires you to have a guild that actually kills either Onyxia or Nefarian for you to turn in the head and get the buff. But some buffs you can get in, like the Felwood buff you could get on your own. So it's a big range of buffs. But what they do, they buff you and make you and your raid way stronger than you would if you just entered the raid and would use class buffs. So it's like a huge increase in DPS and HP and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's like, basically, it's like, you know, getting, like, right now in Legion, Legion doesn't have buffs, but like back in the day, you had your buffs, and you could just get extra buffs by doing specific quests, repeatable quests, stuff like that. And so what people do today, I'm not sure how much they did it back in the day, because I couldn't find a lot of evidence to suggest that
I
people
don't remember them doing it this excessive.
Exactly. Like, it wasn't a big
one.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't a huge part of the raiding culture back then, but today, with all the theory crafting over the years, people have realized that when you stack these buffs, you can clear, you know, Molten Core and Blackwing Lair, you know, so much faster. So now in the raiding scene, you know, in the undocumented server realm, right, on private servers, you know, beyond just clearing raids, you have a big meta regarding speed clears. And so these world buffs are typically used to try to, like, clear, you know, Molten Core in like 25-30 minutes and stuff like that.
Yeah, you have guilds like Progress who did Molten Core in 17 minutes, and just to put that in perspective, next time you guys log on, try run from the entrance to Major Domo and then Ragnaros and see how long that takes. Just running, not even killing anything.
So full
It's
disclosure, the background footage of this interview is a run of Molten Core I did about an hour and a half ago, and I'm pretty sure it took me about 35 minutes to kill all the bosses.
There you go.
Just travel time. Like, it's massive.
There you go, and Progress did it in 17.
Calling
To be, fair,
shenanigans.
to be fair though, they did they did practice a shit ton on their own server, like a PTR. So they just practiced, and then when they because you can have all the consumables and everything, and then when they were comfortable, they went on another private server and did it.
Do you think the raids in Classic are going to be cleared pretty quick?
Yeah, of course.
What about like all the resistances that the developers didn't know about?
Well, now we have to speculate how they what patch they're gonna run and stuff. It kind of depends on how important resistances are as well. I mean, if you do a 1.12.1 and you have world buffs and shit, people can just run in and clear the whole thing in no time. So it depends what they're gonna do game wise, if you ask me.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, obviously, you can't expect, a 15-year-old game to be harder than it was 15 years ago, especially with the advent of the internet. And in general, all of the right now, we talk about a lot of theory crafting since vanilla, but when Classic comes out and the WoW heads and the Icy Veins and the simulation crafts, when these guys get their hands on it, the information is just going to be out there for everybody. So it's not going to be as hard. And I've heard a lot of people say that, oh, look, Naxxramas was cleared, within 2 hours after launch on a certain private server. AQ, 40 was cleared in an hour and a half. That is true. Yeah. But if you actually, wait after the first couple of guilds, it kind of falls off after that. I know, 3 or 4 guilds cleared Nax pretty fast. But I know a lot of other guilds are stuck on Nax on those same servers. And those guilds are composed of very good players, too. Yeah. So you are obviously the players that have been playing vanilla for 10 years or more, they're not going to struggle. But I think the average player, especially players that are so accustomed to the pace of the game today, I think they're going to struggle still. I think people are still going to wipe in Molten Core, no matter what patch is used, because it's just a very different style of gameplay. Molten Core maybe not so much, but definitely BWL. People are going to struggle in BWL and obviously AQ because, again, it's a different skill set. It's like playing an entirely different game. Combat is different. What's threat? What are aggro dumps? What is all this stuff? How much preparation? Oh, wait, you're saying I can't raid right away. I've got to gear up for 100 hours. What's resistance gear? The modern player that didn't play back in the day is still going to struggle with those things. But obviously, because of the knowledge creep and just people understanding the game more, things are going to get cleared faster, and there's going to be more players that see the content than there was back in the day.
Definitely. I also think that two very distinct differences. In vanilla, it's not about clearing a raid once and then that's it. I mean, you have way more people in a raid, and you have way less loot than you have nowadays. So it's, though the first kill and though clearing it is an accomplishment, it's still more acceptable to be repetitive or however you want to say it, because people need to gear up, and it just takes longer time because you have more people and less gear, and not to speak of gear that you go back for, you go back in lower tier raids to get gear because there still are some off pieces that are useful. So, which is again a brilliant design, if you ask me, by Blizzard, that they still have these relevant parts in lower tier raids like enchants or bindings or whatever. So you're definitely gonna be having all the pro players Progress clearing new content within an hour or two, but normal players will struggle with it. Even slightly above average player will as well. My most recent guild, we took, I think it took us a month to clear AQ40. And last time I did the progress, in AQ40 was maybe 1 week. So it depends on the people. Like most of these people haven't seen AQ before, but they were good players. But it just comes to show it still took a month for people to learn all the bosses. Like, because you have some really heavy bosses in AQ compared to the prior content, like boss fights like Cthulhu, which is an amazing fight but requires so much coordination, and to explain to people how this works before they even seen it, it takes a long time for people to understand.
So coming from a fresh perspective, because I never did like vanilla raiding, so I think a question a lot of people in my situation have is, how do I get together with 39 other people, and how the hell do I coordinate with 39 other people to make sure a raid clears? Because it's hard enough with 25 people.
Do you mean from like a leading perspective, like as a guild leader? Or
from all sorts of roles. So raid leading, that's definitely a big one. But just the common player as well. How does everyone know what their role is? How does everyone ascertain what their individual responsibility is when there's so many people to account for?
Well, it starts when you join the guild, basically, if you ask me. Guilds, they recruit players. So you see a guild recruiting, I don't know, Resto Druid or something, and you're a Resto Druid, and you're like, I need a guild. Usually you can apply on their website. If it's an established guild, maybe it's just forming right now, so you can just like invite them or whatever. But from that moment, you already know what your role is. I mean, you're the guild's Resto Druid already when you get invited. That's usually how it is with a raiding guild, at least. So I think right away you kind of know what you're gonna do.
Yeah, and like, and kind of harkening back to what we said earlier, when we were talking about social dependency, because of like every other game element requiring you to group up, whether it be questing and leveling or dungeons or attunement runs or what have you, or even just like getting certain things made from like certain professions, it requires you to talk to people in your guild. By the time you actually start raiding, you've like been with these guys for a long time, like undoubtedly. In the rare situation where you're not really part of a guild, or you're part of one guild and then you switch to another when you start raiding, again, you will probably be running guildmates through attunement runs. You'll probably be doing some, you're still going to be gearing up. You're going to be getting your Hands of Justices from BRD. You're still going to be going back and doing dungeons in the meantime, because there's so much good gear even in the dungeons, that you're going to get to know these people before you set foot in a raid. And I think this is something it's such an intangible, but like I think about it like in Legion today, or more so in Warlords of Draenor when I was actually doing a little bit of raiding. There was a guild that I joined. I never communicated with them at all. I never spoke to anybody until we just physically got into Hellfire Citadel and did our runs every week. You don't have any of that in vanilla. There's just too much that requires you to depend on other people, in order to figure out, the people in your raid and how to coordinate with them. It's just going to come so naturally, because you're going to be doing that as you level up, as you gear up, without even realizing it.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it earlier with the community and the questing and the content, that you are forced, if you want to do something in this game, to work with other people. So I can only agree with Tips. It's gonna come naturally, even though you haven't played vanilla before. I mean, you won't get to level 60 if you don't really have the mindset. So if you get to 60, you will also get to raid.
Exactly.
I think people will be trying to pug, though. It's just the nature of the beast.
Oh, pugging is definitely gonna happen, and there's nothing like pugging also happen in vanilla, especially when you have servers that progressed a bit further. When you get CG, you're definitely going to have CG and MC pugs.
Yeah.
So from a raid leading perspective, what do you think the raid leaders who are in battle for Azeroth, so to speak, doing their thing, and then they bring their guild to vanilla to try it out, and they get there, they get 40 people going. What's going to be like the biggest shock for raid leaders out there from having to deal with 24 other people to 39?
I mean, I haven't done obviously BFA raid leading, or even Legion for that matter, but I have done vanilla raid leading and Burning Crusade raid leading. And you just have to, I think you have to prepare to use a lot of outside tools in the way you structure your guild. I don't know how people do it nowadays, but at least like from everything from loot to attendance, it's nice to either have like spreadsheets or a website that can do this, or you can have like DKP or whatever, or if you have loot council, you have spreadsheets to look at like who's got what kind of loot, who's attending well, who's doing well, all this kind of stuff you need to be on top on as a raid leader in vanilla to have a fine-tuned roster. If you ask me, you can't just be like, oh, okay, let's just get together and then we'll see what happens. If you're managing the guild and the raiding, you have to have all these like the DKP, the attendance, the loot. And that's why we have class officers, we have normal officers, because usually you would distribute some of the stuff, so not one guy is doing everything. But there's definitely, I feel like, more administrative work involved. But I don't know.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Like, God bless the officers and guild leaders and like raid leaders of vanilla. Like, I don't, for the guild that I was raiding with in vanilla, like on, in the recent era, yeah, there's no way I'd be able to do anything like that, period. It's such a big time investment. Compared to today, again, even now, like with the new personal loot changes in BFA, like basically you don't need to do anything. And you have guild banks today. Back then you didn't have guild banks, so you had to manage like different bank account or bank alts and stuff like that. It's just so much administrative work, like Orcbit said, and that's definitely what's going to surprise pretty much everybody. There are people that have probably been, raid leading for like months and months or years, even for expansions. They're thinking, okay, cool,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're thinking, oh, cool, we're gonna do classic and we're gonna have a good time. And like once they get to the end game, they're gonna realize I just don't have time to do all of this because it's so much.
I mean, I remember doing fucking spreadsheets over like melee DPS, who has resistant gear, like for soaking in Anchorage, like who has the fire resistance gear for horsemen in Nax. Like all this stuff you would have in documents, like spreadsheets, and if you don't do it, no one else is gonna do it.
Exactly, and you need to do it. Like part of it, again, and going back to like the vanilla's actual like systems, there's very little loot that drops on boss kills, so you have to make sure that piece of loot goes to somebody who is gonna like get the most out of it. So obviously the first thing means like attendance, somebody that's always going to show up, somebody that's a good player, or maybe somebody that has like a really bad piece in that slot, and giving him this upgrade is really going to like bring his DPS up or his resistances up. So you have to keep track of all of this stuff, because if you don't, then that piece of loot, you don't get the maximum value out of it. You get very little value out of it. And at the end of the day, yes, vanilla is maybe a little bit easier when it comes to raiding than today, in certain ways, but it's still.
Oh, you cut out a little bit there.
He's gone.
Oh, we lost him.
Fuck.
All right, Mr. GM, you're up. You've been quiet on this topic.
I don't have that much to say because I haven't done any raiding in vanilla since 2005.
Fair enough. Good timing on Tips End, actually, because that was really the end of the topics that I had prepared. Any last thoughts, any miscellaneous like culture shock things people might experience from going to Classic from retail version?
I think
no auto loot.
No auto loot. Yeah. I think the main thing people should take away from this and going into Classic should be take a breather. Just like it's chill. Don't rush it, because you're gonna get frustrated because it's an old game. But once you get into that mindset and once you understand how it works, you will enjoy it. If you're an RPG type person and you enjoy like immersive games and great design, then you don't mind all the clunky stuff or the quote unquote bad graphics, all that stuff. So if you just, I'll just say, yeah, chill when you try it out the first time. Don't get too frustrated if you don't understand something, and don't be afraid to ask people.
That's solid advice. Solid advice. Anything else other than no auto loot for you, Mr. GM?
Nah,
because that
really.
is a big one.
The problem with it is that it's all fine and good to speculate, but we have no idea what it's actually going to be like.
Yeah.
It's very true. Welcome back, Tips.
Sorry about that. I just, like, when I get a phone call, it disconnects me.
Oh, it's fine. So we're actually wrapping things up, so tossing the ball in your court. What is the random miscellaneous culture shock thing that people might not realize about Classic coming from retail?
I mean...
No auto loot has already been said.
I just think it's the time, just how long things take to do. Like, it's like when you go, to the DMV, and you don't expect, it's going to take you 3 hours to go. Like, for that first time when you want to get your driver's license, I remember the first time I went to a DMV, and I thought it was going to take, like, maybe half an hour in the line. It took, like, 3.5 hours. And obviously you get very frustrated when you don't, manage your expectations and you don't understand how long it's going to take. I'd say the biggest thing is just how long everything takes in vanilla. It takes time to level. It takes time to walk around zones. It takes time. Combat takes time. I mean, it takes you much longer to kill a mob in vanilla than it does now. It takes time to find groups. It takes time to get your attunements done. It takes time to gear up. It's really a journey. And like all journeys, it takes time. So definitely if you're going into it for the first time and you're kind of, on the fence, you don't know if you're going to enjoy it or not, I would say, in order to kind of prevent any kind of shock, just go into it with an open mind and understanding that, hey, I'm going to have to put in the work. And it's going to take me, what I do in 1 hour in Legion probably does like a hundredth of that in vanilla, So it's just managing your expectations, understanding that it's a different game, and understanding that it's a much slower paced game. I think that's going to shock people the most, to be honest.
Back in the day, it took me 18 days playtime to get to level 60.
Look at that. That's insane. Like, and that's what's 24 times 18? Like over 400 hours, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like nowadays you have quest helpers and like Questy and stuff, and people know the routes, and you got Joanna's guides. But again, the people that haven't done it before, no matter how many tools you have at your disposal, it's still going to take you like 200 plus hours. And yeah, just understanding that and expecting it, I think, is probably the most important thing somebody can do.
And don't buy old spells.
Don't buy all the spells. That's right. Aren't some of the max rank ones worse than like their...
No, it's while leveling, you should only buy the spells you really need because you don't have gold for training everything. But yeah, also when you actually hit max level, let's say you play a healer, you are going to down rank most of your spells because the mana efficiency is better when they're lower ranked, because you don't have a big enough mana pool to just spam the max rank. You would go in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's actually...
What's a spell rank?
oh yeah. Oh god.
Yeah, let's go into that super quick before we go our separate ways.
So I'm pretty sure while you level now in retail, you get new spells whenever automatically. You don't have to visit a
it's
trainer.
just toss in your spell book.
Yeah, back in the day in vanilla, you would learn spells every second level. You would get a talent point every level after level 10, but you would learn new spells and abilities every second level. But you would have to go to a class trainer to train it, and you would pay him gold for the spells. So you would have rank 1 of Healing Wave, but you also have rank 10 and everything in between. So finally, when you get to 60, you're going to have all these different kind of ranks of spells. And let's just say Healing Wave for Shaman, you would have maybe 4, 6, and 10 on your hotbars, and you would only use the rank 10 for like Nature Swiftness combo, like instant heal the tank if he drops like to 0 in no seconds. But you would use your 4 and 6 for like normal healing. But those like the spells are essentially level 40 spells ish, but you use them at 60.
And there you go.
Yeah.
The more you know.
The more you know. I like it.
It's not even the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. So much to learn in vanilla, man. So much.
Well, it's okay. I'm sure Tips and Orcbit, you guys do a lot of classic related content these days. I'm sure everyone can learn what they need to from your YouTube channels, which are... Orcbit, you go first.
It's just YouTube/Orcbit.
Yeah, youtube.com/tipsout baby for me as well. I definitely recommend Orcbit's videos, like a lot of great guides, class guides in general. And on the subject, I think if you're really trying to learn stuff, you know, in vanilla, the best YouTube channel, just off the top of my head, obviously Hamster Girl's got some great videos. Razorisk has some like incredible guide videos, boss guide videos.
Oh yeah, the boss guys did.
So good. And just like in general, I do feel like there's kind of a lack of classic WoW content. If you guys are ever, you know, if anybody out there is listening right now and is like, oh, I want to make WoW content and stuff and I want to cover classic, like I think that's fantastic. The more the merrier. There's definitely a lot of room for a lot more guides and stuff like that. So, yeah. Very
true. And one of the better YouTubers that I know and someone I consider a very close friend, MrGM, where can the people find you at?
We're not friends.
I count you as a friend, okay?
Nah, I'm joking. Just youtube.com/ I think it's Mr. Game Master Review still, but it should be MrGMYT. But, you know, such is life as a when you change your name.
I didn't know you could change the custom URL.
Yeah, you could change it, but then it'll just haunt you forever. And then it'll, so when it does change, all the links that anyone's ever linked of your channel will be gone.
Ouch. Yeah. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us here today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, Templars, stay classy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Later.